Okay, so welcome everyone to our Study Abroad podcast series. So today we have Shreyas who is studying in Australia and will be knowing about his journey from India to Australia. So welcome Shreyas to our podcast.
Thank you, Vishal.
So Shreyas, when was the very first time you thought that maybe you should consider going abroad for some study purposes?
Well, the planning has been going on since my undergrad, and I started my undergrad in 2018, right after my high school, and always there's been that thing that my parents and me always wanted to have that journey that I need to go abroad and study in a country. Initially, Australia was never in the thoughts. It all popped up due to things which I could tell you, as we continue speaking, and. It started with every attempt over the last couple of years giving exams, and then always something coming in between. When I mean something coming in between would be a career turning point, whether I was making the right decision of going overseas and studying, or do I have to take more time, or am I late. So this was something which was always like a block period for me in the last 6 years before I could take a very firm decision.
Sure, sure. So how did you choose your country, course and college?
I've been working on environment and sustainability, mainly the policy component for the last couple of years. Having worked with international corporations like the UNDP and also the government, I started to realize that specialization is one important component that is required as one of the skill sets in today's industry. And Australia turned out to be one of the countries that focuses as one of its PR list. When I mean the PR list is a permanent residency list on sustainability and environment. So I decided to choose our Monash University in Australia because they have a strong foundation of sustainable development. As you see, my current course is something on masters in environment and sustainability with a specialization of leadership and sustainable development. So this all comes under the aegis of one of the exemplary institutes of the institution, which is called as the Monash Sustainable Development Goals Development Institute. So it's called as the MSDI, and they have been focusing on the 17 SDGs and running the intersections of policies and the goals which we plan to achieve in the next 6 years down the line. So that in me to look after that, the foundation of the institution and the academicians associated carry a very strong enriching value. So I'm sure this was the right decision to come over to Australia and pursue a career here.
Sure, sure, sure. And you applied to more colleges and other countries also?
Absolutely, I did apply to US, UK, and also Ireland as well. And I did happen to secure in a couple of the best institutions in the UK and the US as well. Perhaps in UK, like it would be like I was being admitted to study at Liverpool University. So although the best pristine universities that were the Ivy League level had given offer letters, I decided to go for Australia due to the course, the city, especially because of Melbourne, and also the institution over here.
Sure, sure. Did you also apply for any scholarship in parallel?
Well, due to my work experience that was going on, I had to balance a lot of things in the admission process. I was working, I was also doing this. I couldn't. I missed out a lot of scholarships back then because scholarships come at a point where you need to apply, prior to a couple of months, and also securing it at the right point of time. But then I happened to secure some waive offs from the university and also get some good a kind of a scholarship for the early intake students, and that was one part which I could come across. Yeah,
So some partial scholarship you got on your tuition fee and all.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. And after your decision was done for Monash, you had to go through this visa process and accommodation finding. How was this in your case?
Well, when it came to Australian visa, it was this time it was a bit of a hustle because this was the September intake, August September intake, which I had come over for, and Australia has had a couple of histories of shelling down couple of intakes in the previous past since the COVID, because after the COVID, many land laws and policies have changed for many countries as well, and they've become more strict. And how the home affairs over here looks into the we call it as IMI over here. IMI is the official platform for securing visas in Australia. So the process was completely online. It is a huge page kind of a report that we need to fill up online. Includes a lot of financial statements, a lot of experiences, and some important details that the Australian government wants to know while you come over and study. So that was one important thing which took over a couple of days. But then I was very fortunate that I went through an agency which was called as Advise International, based out of Chennai in India. And they were very helpful for me to, help me through this process quite seamlessly, and, kind of make sure I could get through this at the earliest possible, and also get my Australian visa as well. And when it came to the accommodation, of course, accommodation was one of the biggest challenges once I got here. Like every international student, this was something which I got to face the ground reality of it, because it was not quite easy in getting a house you wanted, and as per the budget as well. So the currency over here is high, and as far as you're earning, you can afford, is what the truth is. And well, when it came to that, I initially took my initial step of looking at an accommodation that would be somewhere near to the university, because I didn't probably want to stay away somewhere, far in the city or something. So Monash comes somewhere in the suburbs, which is around 50 to 20 kilometers from the city, Melbourne city. And I decided to, initially look through some platforms such as Airbnb, flatmate.com.au, domain.com.au. I would recommend every international student to do that, because those give me some options of some good houses, and I could also have a chat with owners as well. In fact, Airbnb is one of those active accommodations which gives you an initial home coming kind of a feeling when you're here, because you probably get to also know your owner as well, or the agency who's going to look after. And you also get to have an interaction, understand what you need to pack for, what is available, what is not available, and then plan accordingly. But then eventually after that, I started to get a hang of the accommodation scenario over here, and then I started to being a part of different accommodations. And that's how it goes with various rental histories as you go ahead, continuing a journey in Australia.
Sure, sure. And is this your first trip abroad or have you been abroad before?
Well, I've been to abroad before on two capacities, one personal and professional as well. Me and my family are huge travel enthusiasts. We have been traveling to more than 12 to 13 countries, especially every year, back since my childhood. So I've had the habit of maintaining my own travel page called as Travel with Shreyas. It's on Instagram. So I make sure to, capture travel, food, and art in every country I go. So I've been to, most of the countries covering Europe, US, and also, Asia as well. And I've been on a professional trip as well back in school, when I happened to get to the United Nations in New York and Washington, D.C. for a conference as a part of the Global Young Leaders Conference. So not only that, but also I've been away from home for the last 6 years. So it never felt like, being homesick for a while once I got here. It could really give me a bit of, and hang of understanding what it could look like in this country. And it took some time to understand. Initially, I would say like 6 months was something quite a lot, enough to understand what's happening in Australia, and, how you could make sure you settle yourself to the best.
So did you visit Melbourne before also or is it the first time?
Yes, I did. Somewhere around 2012 to 14 is when I made a trip to Melbourne. Back then, to Melbourne was like a day or two, I guess, because probably we just got to be in the city and we traveled the rest of Australia.
Sure, sure. So in your statement of purpose, did you mention that you have traveled so much, this, that? and that's why I
Absolutely,
would like
yes.
to
And as I said,
explore
as a
this.
part of my Australian visa, I had
Yeah,
to give through, my record of what my passport had, and I had to give it from, the last 10 years where I've been traveling, and that was very important for the government to know where I was and for what purpose I've been traveling to.
sure, sure, sure. And once you landed in Melbourne and you started your classes, what differences did you see in the education system, the way things are taught, etc.?
Well, from undergrad to postgrad, my entire higher education has been in India only, and I've never been overseas, like I said. And this has been my first time. So it was a complete shift for me because I wouldn't, I was more surprised to understand the methodologies of, the pedagogy of classroom teaching, the learning, the atmosphere around how it goes. Because here, professors do expect one thing is that unless you are interacting and you focus and you give your entire 100% to it, they would also make sure it would be very receiving and giving the other way. At the same time, also here there's no such kind of a law or something like a regulation that goes very imposing. So it's something very very casual in terms of education as well, because mainly it goes through a lot of peer interactions and a lot of classroom activities. Most of the chapters, the academic literature is all loaded in like a app kind of a portal. In Monash, they have their own portal, which we look through it, and it's called as Moodle. And most of the universities have its own way of doing that. So probably that way we had to like do some readings initially before we could come to the class. And readings wouldn't be like PowerPoint presentations, but would be like articles or specimens to read, because interactions would be based on a particular paragraph, and that would be the reflection of a class, what was being understood from a particular reading and what is being brought through. So every course has its own kind of deliverables and also its own capacity of learning. When it comes to my course, it's more of research, writing, learning, and interactions, and that's very important for this particular specialization you're at.
Sure, sure. What about the adjustment with the cooking, cleaning, laundry, etc.? How was it for you?
Of course, it's been roller coaster with that. Totally, I should say that you know make sure you learn cooking in the kitchen with your mom and come, because once you get your, it's not going to be very easy for you. The basics were something which I was quite well aware of, because people here start initially cooking 3 meals, but then people start having their own meal preparations over here. So I follow 2 meal process sometimes, and I make sure I could like do some preparation. And if I'm outside, I know what I need to eat outside, and I could plan my budget for eating as well. And that's something very important. And also, of course, cleanliness is very important in Australia, because wherever you're staying, I'm sure the agency or the owners would really oversee in terms of what's very important. And of course, for whatever you're maintaining the house or the atmosphere you're staying at, you're supposed to keep it at the highest level of cleanliness and hygiene, because there are huge fines over here for not keeping it clean as well. And that's something very important which people learn. And I, of course, started to become more and more you know uh, kind of what would I say, I could be like, I started to be more kind of, you could say that probably I started getting to a habit of cleaning, cooking, and making sure I could get up at a time and come up with things are being prepared. So there was more of discipline that was being created for me, and this discipline comes with experience. It does not come with someone telling you or teaching you. And this experience so far has been so good for me. So yeah, I think it comes with a very unique experience for each one of them.
Sure, sure, sure. And did you also try to find any part-time job, internship, etc. since you arrived here?
Absolutely. Initially, I happened to use my LinkedIn as one of the greatest networks of connect. So I secured a a role of a digital marketing lead very initially with a company based out of Perth. That too in the field of environment. They are into plastic recycling. So I could, the job role was not something that was posted, and of course it had to take a couple of interactions with the founder and the team there to make sure why I'm very much credible and worth it to be a part of this role and how I could contribute to it. Apart from that, yes, you need to do some casual jobs as well because you need to support yourself in terms of rent, bill payments, groceries, and also a lot more of your lifestyle as well, which you'd like to have. So it came to starting to do with Uber Eats. I've been here in India sitting in a desk job and working the last couple of years, and now working on the field feels like a very different experience for me. And I don't think that doing an Uber Eats or doing a cleaning job would really ever make you a very different person, or people should think about you or should judge about you, right? Because this is some lessons of life that teaches you in a very big way in terms of how much you're earning and how much you're spending. So this is one of the greatest examples of doing a job over here. And of course, it's been some tough days have been there, and I'm sure there are more tough days ahead for me as well. So lots of balancing with a lot of work, life. So yeah, so
Sure.
it's all about making a schedule and planning it out in a very
How
brisk way.
correct, correct. How was your weather transition from India to Australia?
I come from Chennai, which is quite humid and very, very sultry. And when I got here, I was all in my jackets and, all my thermal wear and everything because it was the winters when I'd arrived, the peak winters. And it was quite cold for me. Days could be like I had a 6 a.m. class in the morning and had to walk through the fog, literally. Or perhaps it could be like, raining and then I driving a bicycle en route back to my home from uni. So it's been very challenging with cold weather as well, and also hot weather now because we are experiencing a summers in Australia right now. But then the special part about what Melbourne as a city is, every 5 minutes there's a change in weather over here. And I'm sure you would have heard it because we are near the poles and we face Antarctica over here. So the weather conditions are very extreme. So today it's been humid. Tomorrow it could be raining as well. Or perhaps the other day it could be windy too. So here it's all about preparing yourself for all kind of weather conditions. And there have been days which I've got sick as well. But the only thing is that to make sure that with the weather conditions changing, you need to know how you consume your daily food habits and also take care of yourself. So when they say winters, make sure you cover yourself. That's something very, very important. And I did that to the best of my, whatever I could.
Sure, sure. So in the last 5, 6 months of your life abroad, do you see yourself as becoming more independent, more on your feet, and gaining more confidence, etc.?
Well, I think after 6 months, I could be, answering a very, the, the best way that I could say that I'm more independent. But then I've started to experience that I want to reach to that stage as well, and I've started to feel about myself that I'm way more independent in lots of things over here because it's not just about living and working over here, but then also emotionally and physically dealing with a lot of things over here. So it's all about you on ground, and you don't, and your parents can be in support. Of course, I do have my parents as my backbone, but then when it comes to the country, it's you, and you need to, follow the new laws, the way the customs over here. Things start to get very, unique over here. So it's been something like a very good journey so far, and I've started to learn a lot about, how I should be around, what's very important, what people would like to, interact with, who should I be around, the right circle of people. That's something which I started to learn. And perhaps you also need to be counting on some, good social circle of friends as well and peers who you could, like depend or you could trust. You could be, they could be relatives as well, because you need to have someone where you could, be having an hand in hand support at times, and that goes, uh, vice versa.
Sure, sure, sure. So what are your future goals from now, next few years?
Well, I look forward to working in Australia, of course, in the field of sustainable development. I don't know what would be my specialization for the which organization, but I hope to be, working on the social causes of here, especially with, how the policy interfaces mainly with. So one option is the government and, the UN corporations of here. And the second would be the corporates and, international NGOs or corporations. So I've already started that, groundwork of being part of different societies and groups of here in uni and also outside, um, in Melbourne as well. So this has started to give me an initial touch base of where I could be applying. And it all depends with, also the college being one of the backbones. When you get your internship process, you have an industry experience option, which is very compulsory and part of your coursework. So it all depends in terms of how you create with your employer and, how your employer makes sure that you're valuable. So because today your visa is completely on your employer's hands, and that's how he's going to extend it and make sure that you have a long stay in this country.
What advice would you give to younger yourself, the juniors, the aspirants and people like that?
Well, I think come here for an experience, because people, I've usually heard from a lot of people saying that it's not very easy. There are a lot of problems, financial problems. Is it too late to come abroad? I'm right now 24 years and I still feel old about myself, studying. But the fact being that I've come here for the experience, it's not just the education as well, but then also you're starting a new journey. Life needs to be recycling at every point of time. You need to like keep on growing to like bigger levels. And if you want to get like tomorrow, how you could see like greatest examples of people in larger MNCs and foundations they have put up, it's not because of they have lived a very smooth way of completing a graduation and working. You need to also see the outside part of where you live, interact with different people and gain those experiences. So I would strongly recommend, if that's in your capacity, always take a plan to pursue your overseas education and make sure that overseas education has a plan that would be continuing for the next 10 years as well. So that carries, more additional value.
Sure, sure. Any recommendation on usage of LinkedIn for the juniors?
Absolutely. It's a very good platform. You need to be making sure you set a target of spending on your LinkedIn couple of hours every day. It could be anything, looking through posts, connecting with people, or kind of also looking through job profiles, what they're expecting out of it, what skills others carry in their profile, so that you could gain those skills and how those skills being gained through different certifications. So LinkedIn is a very good platform, and not just because of your education as well, but it also helps you in an overall capacity altogether.
Sure, sure. Thank you very much, Shreyas, for your insights and knowledge and your experience sharing. And we hope our audience would have learned something today. So take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, Vishal.